Imagine the year dying in your mouth like cold ash. You stand at the edge of a settlement that clings to the dark like a secret. You see breath turn white and vanish. You feel what will scratch your neck, heavy with smoke and rain. Somewhere nearby, someone forces a laugh into the air, but it snaps off too fast, as if the night bites it in half. A cup passes from hand to hand, sour beer, bitter herbs, meant to warm the blood, meant to pretend this turning of the year is a celebration instead of a cliff. The old people whisper that tonight the world resets. But you hear the woods creak. You smell the river far off, rotting reeds and winter mud. You sense a pressure in the dark, like footsteps that do not belong to deer. You see him before anyone announces him, a runner, staggering out of the tree line like a man dragged by invisible hands. His lips are blue. Mud plates his shins like crude armor. His eyes shine too bright, not from joy. Fear has a way of polishing the gaze. He tries to speak and fails once, sucking air like it hurts. Therefore the silence tightens around him. Then the words come out broken, each one a stone dropped into a well. Men. Hundreds. Maybe more. On the road. You feel every head turn as if pulled by string. Someone crosses fingers over a charm. Someone mutters a name that might be a god or might be a dead relative. The elders gather close, their voices low, like prayer that fears being overheard. Are these traders with guards? Raiders smelling easy winter prey? A coalition of hungry villages? No one knows. But you understand the one thing that matters without anyone explaining it: the crossing. The narrow throat where the river valley can be passed. The old causeway, wooden packed earth, where wagons creak through with amber and bronze and salt. The place everyone needs. The place everyone fears. If that crossing falls into hands, your world shrinks overnight. No medal. No news. No marriage ties carried along the route. No promise that spring brings anything but more hunger. A slow death dressed up as winter. You do not get a map. You get a direction pointed by a trembling hand, the river valley, the marsh, the narrow way. Therefore you grab what exists. You feel a shield lifted from a wall peg, wood swollen from damp, rawhide rims smelling of old sweat. You test its weight on your forearm and feel the leather bite. You take a club that is more tree than weapon, knots like fist bones along its length. If your family is lucky, a bronze knife comes down from a beam, greenish sheen and the faint stink of metal. You hear the small sounds of a household pretending not to be afraid, a child sniffing, a dog whining, a woman tying a strap too tight. You step out because the valley calls your name like a drumbeat you cannot refuse. The road does not feel like a road. It feels like wet ground deciding whether to let you pass. You march through cold that crawls into joints and sits there. You see puddles reflecting a sky the color of old bone. You feel mud grab your ankles with every step, negotiating for your heat. Boots, if they can be called boots, soak through. Blisters rise, then numbness smothers them, but the numbness does not last. The pain returns with sharper teeth. Therefore the march becomes a counting of steps you cannot stop taking. Food becomes a problem immediately. The grain in your pouch goes damp, clumping like earth. You chew it anyway. It tastes like soil and panic. Someone tries to joke, something about boiling a leather strap if this goes on. The first laugh comes out thin and desperate. But no one laughs twice, because the idea is not funny, it is practical. You swallow and feel your stomach fold in on itself, not empty, angry. Scouts slip ahead like ghosts and come back with eyes too wide. One swears it is a small band, dozens, maybe a raiding party. But another insists he sees a moving line that does not end, figures passing between trees like a river of men. In the dark, every shadow multiplies. Therefore arguments spark and die, because nobody wants to waste breath fighting other mouths when an army may be walking toward your throat. You don't know if the scouts see true or see fear wearing a cloak. You only know the sound of the runner's voice, hundreds, still echoes in your ribs. Days blur into a single long shiver. Your shoulders ache from straps. Your fingers stay swollen as if your body holds water like a hoarded treasure. At night, fires stay small because flame is a signal. Smoke clings low, tasting of damp wood and stubbornness. You hear men whisper about the crossing like it is a living thing. You hear women speak names of sons and husbands as if the names can hold bodies together. The year turns somewhere behind cloud and treetop, but the sky does not care. Then the air changes. You feel it before you see water. It grows colder, heavier, as if the river breathes out rot. You smell reeds, sweet decay, and black mud. The ground breaks into channels, little cuts filled with dark water. Every step risks a slip that could drown you in a place shallow enough to mock you. Therefore, the valley feels like a trap that pretends to be a path. You see the crossing at last, and it is not grand. That is why it matters. An old causeway, packed earth reinforced with wood, narrowing into a bridge-like throat. On either side, marsh spreads like a wet hand. The crossing is the one place wagons can pass without sinking. Therefore, it becomes the one place men can be made to die in a line. You take positions because doing nothing feels like offering your throat. You kneel behind a low rise. You press fingers into wet grass and feel cold run up your palm. You raise your shield and watch your breath fog its surface. You listen for the enemy and hear only reeds rubbing together like dry lips. But that silence does not comfort. It threatens. It means someone else chooses when the world explodes. Night falls early, as if the valley swallows the last light. Torches bloom along the reeds like impatient stars, scattered, wavering. You cannot count them. You cannot tell if there are 10 or 100 because darkness swallows distances and returns lies. Somewhere, a horn sounds, one long note, then a second. The pattern means something to someone else. Therefore, your skin tightens, because you are hearing a language of war you do not speak. It feels like a countdown to midnight that celebrates nothing. You don't know if reinforcements come. You don't know if the enemy already controls the far bank. You don't know if the elders send you as defense or as sacrifice. You only know your mouth tastes of old smoke and fierce sweat, and your hands keep testing the grip of your club like a prayer you can touch. The first arrow arrives without ceremony. You do not hear a command. You do not see a heroic charge. You hear a hiss, thin and fast, like an insect passing your ear. Then a thunk, wet and final. A man beside you jerks as if an invisible rope yanks him backward. He drops to one knee, eyes wide, not with fear, with confusion. Like he cannot believe the year ends like this. He opens his mouth to speak, but only breath comes out, bubbling. Therefore, the world changes shape. Talking ends. Thinking shrinks. Everything becomes close, your shield, your weapon, the mud under your toes. More arrows come. Some strike shields with a brutal slap that vibrates into bone. Some bite into wood and stick out like black teeth. But some find skin, under an arm, into a thigh, into a back when a man twists to shout. You hear different sounds for each. Wood hit, bone hit, flesh hit. You never forget that war has a voice. Standing still becomes dying. Therefore you surge toward the causeway because motion feels like choice. You step onto wet wood and packed earth. The crossing narrows, and your world becomes shoulders and breath and the slick shine of trampled boards. Your shield bumps ribs. Your club catches on someone's cloak. You smell lanolin from wool, smoke from torches, and the sharp metallic tang that means blood has already spilled. The crush tightens. You feel bodies press from behind, urging you forward, not out of courage, but out of fear of being the one left in the open. You see elbows and the backs of heads. You hear someone sob once, quick, like a child, then swallow it. But there is no space for softness here. Therefore, the line becomes a single creature, shoving itself into the throat of the crossing. On the far bank, silhouettes move, men with spears, men with clubs, men with blades that flash and vanish. Bronze catches torchlight like a cold wink. Are they locals like you? Foreigners? Mercenaries hired with amber and promises? You cannot tell. Everyone looks the same when they are trying to kill you. Their faces are masks of shadow. Their voices blend into one harsh roar, not words, pressure. Therefore, fear has no clear target. It floods everything. Another volley whispers in. You raise your shield and feel impact slam through it, numbing your arm. Your shoulder burns. Your fingers cramp around the handle. You smell pitch from torches, and beneath it the swamp stench grows stronger, as if the marsh enjoys this. But the marsh does not cheer. It waits. Therefore you feel trapped between men and water and sky that offers no escape. Someone slips. You see a leg go sideways, a shoulder slam the rail-less edge. A body splashes into black water. He flails once, mouth open, and the sound that comes out is not a scream, it is water entering. Then he disappears under boots and boards because nobody can stop. Therefore, the crossing teaches its first lesson. A man can drown in a crowd without anyone touching him. You hear that swallowed sound, and it lodges in your memory like a thorn. The first clash of bodies happens at the choke point where the causeway tightens. Spears jab. Clubs swing. A bronze blade scrapes across a shield and screams like an angry animal. You feel your own club rise and fall, not elegant, desperate. You strike what is in front of you, a shoulder, a forearm, a head ducking too late. You feel the shock travel up your wrist. It is like hitting wet wood, then hitting stone. But there is no time to wonder what breaks. Therefore your arms become machines, obeying the nearest threat. Someone grabs your shield edge. Fingers clamp hard, trying to yank it away. You twist, feel leather straps bite skin, and you slam the shield forward. It connects with a face you do not see clearly, just the shape of a nose, the wet sound of impact. The hand releases. But the release does not mean safety, it means another hand reaches in. Therefore the fight becomes a tangle of grips and shoves, like men wrestling inside a storm. Arrows still come, but now they come into a crowd. A shaft buries into the back of the man in front of you. He stiffens and leans into you as if asking for help. But the line presses from behind and you cannot hold him. Therefore you feel his weight slide down your chest. His blood warms your tunic for a moment before the cold steals it. You step over him because there is no room to mourn. You smell blood now, hot metal and salt, mixing with marsh rot. The combination is nauseating, like a feast gone wrong. Your hands go slick. Your grip changes. You stop holding your weapon like a tool and start holding it like a last promise. You taste iron in your mouth, and you do not know if it is from biting your lip or from the air itself. The noise becomes a wall. Grunts, screams cut short, wood cracking, the wet smack of club on flesh. But inside that wall there are smaller sounds that terrify more. A man pleading, a man laughing too hard, a man making a bubbling noise that means his throat is open. Therefore the mind tries to run away, but the body stays trapped in the narrow throat of the crossing. You see faces close now, lit by torchlight that turns skin into orange wax. Eyes reflect flame. Teeth flash. A man lunges with a spear. You knock it aside with your shield, feeling the shaft scrape and splinter. But the spear tip catches your forearm, just a kiss, and heat blooms under the cold. Therefore your blood joins the mud, and the wound stings like an insult that cannot be answered politely. Another man swings an axe-like tool, maybe a woodcutter's blade turned into war. You duck too late. It clips your shield rim, tearing rawhide, jolting your arm numb. You smell the rawhide tear, animal, and smoke. But numbness is dangerous because it lies. Therefore you flex your fingers hard, forcing them to obey, because dropping the shield here is the same as opening your ribs. The heap begins. Bodies jam the passage, fallen, kneeling, crawling. The crossing, meant for wagons, becomes a grinding mill for men. You see a skull already broken, hair matted with mud. A club rises and comes down again on it. Not to win, just to make sure. Another blade stabs downward into the pile because the pile still moves. Therefore brutality becomes method. Mercy becomes a luxury the narrow throat cannot afford. Fog of war swallows meaning. Are you defending your home or stealing someone else's route? Is the man in front of you an invader or a cousin from a far village? You cannot tell under grime and torchlight. You hear a horn again, different now, urgent. But you do not know if it signals retreat, advance, or a trap closing. Therefore uncertainty becomes another weapon, heavier than any club. You don't know if reinforcements arrive. You don't know if your rear line breaks. You only know the pressure keeps coming. A shout rises from somewhere behind, your language, maybe. It cracks with panic. Someone screams that the flank gives way. But you cannot see flanks in this crush. You see only the man's back in front of you and the mud underfoot. Therefore the rumor becomes reality anyway. Your stomach drops, your breathing shortens, your arms swing harder, because fear demands payment in effort. You feel the crossing tilt in your mind, as if the whole structure might collapse under so many feet. You hear boards groan. You feel vibration through soles, a trembling that makes every step uncertain. But the causeway holds for now. Therefore the battle continues, not because anyone chooses it, but because the ground still exists beneath you. A body slams into your side. You stumble toward the edge. For a heartbeat you see the water below, black, slow, hungry. You feel cold air rise from it like breath. You windmill an arm, shield scraping another shield, and you regain balance by sheer luck. But luck is not stable. Therefore you keep your weight low, knees bent, like a man trying not to fall off the world. A spear point appears at your ribs. You twist, and it scrapes along your shield instead, leaving a line. You shove forward and your club finds a forearm. You feel bone give slightly, like green branch snapping. The man's weapon drops. He howls. But he does not fall. Another man steps into his place immediately. Therefore, the fight teaches its second lesson. Hurting one body does not stop the mass. Midnight arrives without a bell. There is no toast. There is no blessing. It is simply the moment you realize the killing does not stop when one side breaks. It continues in the mud, in the water, in the reeds, where nobody watches except the river. You see shapes fleeing into darkness, pursued by shapes that move like wolves. You hear splashes and then silence. But the silence is not peace, it is bodies going still. Therefore, the new year begins with the valley chewing. Somewhere close, a man tries to crawl away, dragging a useless leg. His hands claw at mud, leaving grooves. He looks up at you, eyes wide, mouth open to beg. But another boot steps on his back, pinning him, and a blade drops. Therefore, you learn what organized violence does to the heart. It turns pleas into background noise. You feel your face stiffen, not because you approve, but because feeling too much here gets you killed. The fight stretches. Time loses edges. You cannot tell minutes from hours. Your arms shake from repeated strikes. Your mouth dries, but when you swallow, you taste blood anyway. You hear your own breathing loud inside your skull, like a drum that refuses to stop. But exhaustion does not end the battle. Therefore, you keep moving because stillness equals death, and death waits in every gap. A sudden push surges from behind, stronger than before. The line lurches forward over the heap. Your foot lands on something soft that shifts. You look down and see hair, human hair, pressed into mud. Your stomach turns. But the push does not stop. Therefore, you step again and again, because bodies become terrain. You feel the crossing become a machine, and it runs on bone. At some point, the arrows thin. Maybe quivers empty. Maybe archers fear hitting their own. You do not know. But close fighting grows more savage. You hear the scrape of bronze on bronze, the clack of wood on wood, the wet tear of cloth. Therefore, the battlefield becomes intimate in the worst way, faces inches apart, breath mixing, eyes locking for a heartbeat before one of you falls. You see a man with a fine pin at his cloak, something that looks crafted with care. He swings a sword, not a long, elegant thing, but a short blade meant for stabbing in tight spaces. That detail hits like a slap. Someone comes prepared. Someone expects this. But preparation does not guarantee victory. Therefore, he still slips in mud, and your shield edge catches his throat. He gags, hands flailing, and the crowd swallows him. The reeds on the bank shake violently. You hear fighting there too, boots sucking in mud, splashes, muffled screams. That means the battle is not only on the crossing. It spreads into the marsh, where men vanish. But the marsh hides outcomes. Therefore, you cannot tell if your side wins or loses. You only know the valley is eating everyone equally. A horn blows again, long and strained. Some men begin to pull back. Others surge forward as if hearing the opposite command. Confusion ripples through the press like a sickness. But confusion also creates openings. Therefore, a gap appears near you, just a shoulder width of space, and instinct throws you into it, pushing, twisting, clawing for breath. You stumble off the main crush onto soggy ground near the bank. Your knees sink. Cold water seeps into your leg wrappings. You suck air like it is the first air ever made. But rest lasts only a blink. Therefore, you raise your shield again as figures emerge from reeds, dark shapes, uncertain allegiance. One runs with a spear low. You cannot read his face. He lunges. You meet it with your shield, but the point drives into wood and sticks. The force shoves you backward. You feel the spear vibrate like a living thing. You grab the shaft with your free hand. Splinters bite your palm, and you wrench. But he holds on, eyes wild. Therefore, you slam your club down on the shaft until it cracks. The tip remains in your shield like a lodged tooth. The man stumbles, suddenly unarmed. He reaches for a knife. The knife flashes. You jerk away, and it slices your tunic, grazing skin. Heat blooms again. But pain is information. Therefore, you move faster, stepping in close, shoulder first, driving him into reeds. They whip your face, leaving wet lines. The smell here is stronger, green rot, stagnant water. You strike once, twice. He drops. Whether he lives or dies is unclear, because the reeds hide him immediately. Therefore, the marsh keeps its secrets. Your arms tremble. You try to wipe sweat from your brow and smear blood instead. Your vision tunnels. You hear someone calling a name, maybe yours, maybe someone else's. but names dissolve in this noise. Therefore you focus on shapes, threats, gaps, routes. The battle begins to thin not with a grand moment, but with absence. Fewer bodies press. Fewer blades flash. The noise drops from a roar to scattered snarls. You hear distant running. You hear a splash and then nothing. But you do not trust quiet, because quiet can mean ambush. Therefore you stay crouched, shield up, listening like prey that refuses to lie down. Eventually the sky lightens, not with sunrise glory, but with a thin gray seep through cloud. Dawn comes like an exhausted breath. You look over the valley and it looks emptied out, like a feast after wolves. You stand shaking, not from cold anymore, but from your body trying to understand how it survives. The ground is littered with what yesterday are people, shields split, spear shafts snapped, clubs dropped, arrowheads lying in mud like black seeds. You step carefully because the earth is soft in places it should not be, soft because it hides bodies. You see a hand half buried, fingers curled as if still gripping air. You smell everything at once, smoke dying, blood cooling, swamp rot triumphant. But the strongest smell is iron, because death leaves metal behind in the mouth and in the mind. Therefore nausea rises again, and you swallow it down because there is nothing else to do. You begin to notice details that prove this is no simple village brawl. There are too many dead, too many different kinds of weapons, too many signs of planning. The killing concentrates at the choke point, at the banks, in the places archers choose to turn a crossing into a corridor of death. You see arrow wounds in backs, in ribs, in faces, angles that speak of volleys, not random panic. But even evidence does not give comfort. Therefore, realization hits harder than any club. An army moves through here and meets another army that refuses to yield. You find quiet clues among the carnage. A ring, bent but still shining dully. A pin with a pattern unfamiliar. A tool that looks used by someone who travels, something meant for repair on the road. These objects whisper that some fighters come from far beyond your fields. Maybe they come for the route itself, trade, tribute, control. Maybe they come because old systems crack under hunger and winter and the desperate need for metal. But motives do not change the bodies. Therefore, the valley becomes a ledger written in flesh. You look at your shield and see the spear point still lodged there, stuck like a memory that refuses to be pulled free. You touch it and feel cold metal. You imagine the hand that shapes it, the furnace smell, the hammer ring, human effort turned into a wound. But you do not have the strength to pry it out. Therefore you carry it, because leaving it feels like leaving proof that this happens. Survivors move like sleepwalkers. Someone kneels beside a body and rocks slightly, making a sound that is not words. Someone else searches the dead with quick hands, not out of greed, but out of necessity. Bronze is life, and winter does not forgive waste. But every time a body is rolled, a new face appears, slack, unfamiliar, as if the valley produces endless strangers. Therefore you understand another lesson. Organized war does not only kill, it rearranges what is normal until scavenging becomes routine. You don't know who holds the crossing now. Maybe your side, maybe nobody. The causeway stands, but it is slick with mud and dark stains. The marsh water carries small things downstream, splinters, cloth, perhaps worse. But the route does not care who dies on it. It waits for the next wagon, the next tribute, the next band of hungry men. Therefore victory feels hollow because the throat remains, and throats attract knives. You leave the valley with a taste of iron still on your tongue. Your steps are slower, heavier. Each footfall feels like it presses into the memory of the mud. You see smoke from distant homes and wonder which ones still stand. You feel your hands shake when they are no longer gripping a weapon, as if the body forgets how to be a person. But the year is new. Therefore life demands continuation, even when the mind begs to stop. The verdict sits in your chest like a stone. Violence is no longer a raid. It is logistics. It is planning. It is men gathered in numbers large enough to change the shape of a region. You see, in the broken shields and organized volleys, a world learning how to mobilize. But learning does not mean improving. Therefore, the valley teaches that progress can sharpen teeth as easily as it builds roads. You stand at the settlement edge again, or what remains of it, and you feel the wind on your cracked lips. People ask what happens out there. Their eyes demand a story that makes sense. But sense is the first casualty. Therefore, the only truth you can carry is sensory. The hiss of arrows, the groan of boards, the sound of a mouth filling with water, the smell of blood mixed with reeds. You see faces harden as they hear it. You feel something communal break and reform into something colder, readiness. Imagine the same pattern wearing different clothes. You see a bridge on a map, a shipping lane on a screen, a supply chain traced in neat lines. It looks clean, but choke points always look clean until pressure arrives. Therefore, when food tightens, when metal, oil, chips, medicine turn scarce, humans do not only compete politely. You see them mobilize. You see them dehumanize. You feel language change. Neighbors become threats. Trade becomes leverage. The bottleneck becomes a weapon. But the calendar still turns. Therefore, the new year arrives either way, and the question is what it costs to keep the route. The Tollense mud holds the cost like a clenched fist, bodies piled where a road narrows, lives erased for control of passage. You see how many never return to any hearth. You feel the emptiness that follows, the missing hands it fires, the missing voices in songs. But the crossing remains, and so does the hunger that drives men back to it. Therefore, the true winner is not a banner. It is the system that rewards taking the throat. So do you see the same choke points today, places where a narrow passage decides who eats, who builds, who speaks? You feel how quickly ordinary people become pieces on a board when routes and resources tighten. But you also feel the moment before the first arrow, the moment when choices still exist. Therefore, the question becomes personal, not historical. What is done when rumor becomes fear, and fear demands a target? Imagine standing on the edge of that causeway again, hearing the horn you do not understand, smelling reeds and smoke, feeling your shield strap cut into your forearm. You see strangers across the water, but their faces blur into your own. You feel the crowd behind you push. But there is still one heartbeat of choice before the shove becomes fate. Therefore, ask yourself, when the world narrows to a single crossing, what is protected? The route, the people, or the story told afterward to justify the pile of bodies?